Welcome. I'm Doug Lay, a member of the great Santa Cruz High School class of 1969. First, I want to thank each of the candidates who are here offering to give enormous amounts of time during the next 4 years for the betterment of our city. I don't know that many people understand how much effort goes into this job. I personally think you should all consider getting mental exams, but it is an absolutely remarkable feat of civic valor that you perform, and we are all indebted to you for it. I'd also like to thank Bill Teisling, director of the Chamber, for his remarkable efforts in organizing this event. Unfortunately, he cannot be with us this evening as he is recuperating, but I'm sure he's watching. Hello, Bill. This forum has been organized by the Santa Cruz Area Chamber of Commerce, the Santa Cruz Downtown Association, and the Santa Cruz Business Council. There are other venues where the candidates have the opportunity to express their opinions on various issues facing the city. This forum is intentionally focused on issues related to the economic vibrancy of our community. One last comment before I go into the program that we're going to be following, and that is, if you haven't already done so, you can still register to vote. Voting is the bedrock of our system of participatory government, and it's very important that everybody sign up and actually go to the polls or vote by absentee. Let me explain the format for the evening. Each of the candidates has answered in writing a series of questions prepared by the organizers of this event. Their answers are available at the Santa Cruz Chamber of Commerce website, santacruzchamber.org. From these written answers, the organizers have prepared questions for the candidates. At the beginning and end of the evening, there's a single question that will be asked of all the candidates. We will limit those answers to 3 minutes per candidate. After the first uniform question, I will be directing specific questions to each candidate in 3 rounds. We are asking these answers to be limited to 90 seconds. Aaron Billingsley, charming representative of the Chamber, will be threatening you with signs and scowls and a big stop sign if you attempt to go over your limit. Let me remind everyone, this is not a debate, but it's an effort to elucidate the positions that each of you has on the important issues facing our community. Unless there are questions from the candidates, let me begin. This first question is, as I said, giving you 3 minutes to answer. As a city council member, you will have a limited amount of time, energy, and resources to focus on solving problems. In addition, and this shouldn't be minimized, the city staff and the community have limited resources and attention spans. What are the 3 most important issues on which you, as a city council member, will take leadership? And in each case, what outcome do you expect to have achieved 4 years from now? We're going to begin with Pam.
Well, thank you. Thank you. Okay, so 3 things, that I plan to accomplish. Well, for me, the thing that excites me the most is improving our economy. As a former small business owner and now as a operations manager for a multi-million-dollar software company, growing business is a tangible thing. You can see your results in the bottom line. So I think what we need to do is, while on council, I'd like to treat our business partners as valued members of our community. And I think they're key to our long-term success. And I think what we can do is if we partner together, we can grow our tax base, which is really, really what's so critical for our community right now for funding our services and other issues. So our economy, growing our tax base, if I could choose a goal to accomplish in 4 years, it would be to increase our tax base by 10%. So that would be my focus. I think And then public safety is also a huge priority of mine. I have an 8-year-old son and a 92-year-old grandmother in this community, and there's nothing more important to me than their well-being. So I will, right now we have about, let me just tell you, in the last 4 years, we've had about a 35% increase in overall crime. So if in the next 4 years I can reduce that by, say, 25%, then I'd say I've done a pretty good job. The third thing would be doing more with less. We're in critical times, so we need to look at our budget from the bottom up, analyze everything. That's what I do in my job. Every year I have to justify rate on return. Can we afford it? When our income varies from month to month, we're constantly readjusting things, and I think the city needs to operate in a similar fashion and pay close attention to expenditures and in relationship to income. So those would be my 3 priorities with my limited time.
Excellent.
I'll see what I can do.
Thank you. Don, you're next on our list.
Great. First, I just want to say thank you all for inviting me to participate tonight, and it's great to have an opportunity to share my ideas with the community. I would name 3 things. I have a little bit of an advantage because I can look retrospectively at this question as the one seated council member who's here. What I have made a priority and will continue to make a priority is to generate sufficient revenue for the city to protect the basic services that the community expects and needs. Second is to improve our local economy and create more jobs in the community. And the third is is not so much an issue, but something that has just become even more important to me as I've served over the past 4 years, is to find opportunities to collaborate and problem solve when that's needed. It's easy to say what our top 3 priorities are, but the reality is we probably only get to work on 2. And that the other third of our time, if not more, is required of us to attend to problems that aren't necessarily our priorities, but are the priorities of the city as they emerge. As you know, when the crash of the economy happened, that was right when I became a city council member this term. But I think since that time, I played a leadership role on the council in keeping the city's fiscal house in order. We made the reductions that were required of us in the budget. We bargained with our unions and secured real savings, both in the present and in terms of the long-term pension obligations we have. We raised revenue both through a voter-approved ballot measure and by approving new projects that have contributed to our tax base. You're familiar with many of the things that have come online in the last few years: the Marine Sanctuary Center, which is a major year-round visitor draw, the Tannery Arts Center, not just a cultural gem, but an engine of small local entrepreneurs. The new Hotel Paradox that's just opened, which is now the largest hotel in Santa Cruz and really a top quality facility. Forever 21 is now open, bringing hundreds of more shoppers to downtown every day. And I've also played a real role in sustaining the city's economic development staffing. As you know, redevelopment went away by decision of the state. And it was through the effort of the city council that we found money to continue an economic development effort in this community, even though we lost that funding. And it's so critical to the future of our economy to sustain that effort. And it looks like my time is just about up. So thank you.
Thank you. Next is Cece.
Thank you. And once again, thank you for this opportunity. And these guys have heard it all before, but I like to say, I am endorsed by the spirit of Susan B. Anthony and Elizabeth Cady Stanton, because without them, I would not be here before you. They never lived to see the day that I get to serve, or that we as women get to vote. So I like to remember, who I am and where I come from, and the people who worked really hard before me. Thank you, Steve. So to answer the question, so I would focus on economic prosperity, including, generating revenue, improving our local economy, and collaborations. Part of that, for an example, that's just the first thing. So number one, focus on economic prosperity. I would like to create an education tourism project that could possibly be held at the Tannery Arts Center, here at the Museum of Modern History here, or at maybe the new Warrior Stadium, whatever places in Santa Cruz that could possibly hold that, and that would lead to encouraging a business incubator center. And what the education tourism project is a place where doctors, lawyers, teachers, tradesmen can come and do continuing education units. Rather than going somewhere else, they can come here and actually take those classes. Carrillo College and UCSC are not continuing education unit institutions. So we could have that here in Santa Cruz. That would bring in revenue. People would come here from all over the place and take their classes on how to build a Apple iPod app or whatever it is. And instead of going somewhere else and they would bring their families, they'd stay in our hotels and eat in our restaurants. And I also think that a tourism occupational tax is an important thing to the economic prosperity, and I know we're all going to work on that. Also, bring in the Santa Cruz Warriors. I think that is a good thing. I think that will bring in money to Santa Cruz. And I also want to encourage the small businesses, and particularly the tech industry. It is the next booming industry. It is the industry of the future, and we need to support that. And how can we support that, you say? I believe that broadband access is part of a way to do that. And I'd like to see a county-wide high bandwidth fiber network that could be really a transformative stimulus to filling more than 300,000 square feet of vacant commercial space, and it was also generate 1,000 to 2,000 jobs. So I would support the adoption of these policies that would lower the barriers to installation of this resource in the principal commercial areas like by Harvey West. Now, why this is now? That's my time. Okay, there you go.
Thank you very much. I'd like to remind everyone that we are being taped by Community TV and being streamed live by CTV. So be careful what you say. It's there forever. Next is Jake is going to tackle this start-off question.
Yeah. Thank you guys for having me tonight, and thank you for the opportunity to meet all you members of the community and stuff. And I'm humbled to be able to sit next to all of you guys who are, like me, really concerned about the community. And yeah, so again, thanks for the opportunity. So to answer the question, throughout my entire campaign, what I've always said is my most important thing is public safety. I feel that Santa Cruz, as Pam was saying, the crime rate's gone up over 30% over the last few years, and that's my main concern. The second thing is I think we need to revitalize our economy through responsible growth and development. And thirdly, we need to revitalize our environment. Our beaches rank among the most polluted in the state, and that's unacceptable. To see these ideas through all comes from my second most important priority, which is the economy. We need to raise money to give the city revenue it needs to get the job done efficiently, and give them the money that they need to do the job that they need and hire the people that they need. Instead of making cuts, we need to be hiring more people right now. And if we do that, we can make our streets safer. And if we do that, we can clean our beaches, and we can be proud of our beaches and where they stand amongst the state. And we should set an example of how clean our environment is, and we should be at the top of the list, not at the bottom. Sorry, what was the third part of the question?
Well, there really is three things that you see as your priorities, and the other part is how would you implement them, and then what do you see as your own as what you will have accomplished at the end of your term?
Yeah, in 4 years, as far as public safety goes, in 4 years, I would like to be able to walk down Pacific Avenue at 10:30 at night after the movie with my son, who's 1 year old now, and then he'll be 5. And I feel like right now that would be pretty crazy to do. But in 4 years, I'd like to be able to do that, and I'd like Cowles Beach to be the cleanest in the state, like I said. And I'd like to be able to tell my son in 5 years that, hey, when you graduate college, you'll be able to get a job in Santa Cruz and stay in Santa Cruz and raise your family in Santa Cruz, because our economy can support that. That's it.
Thank you. Next is Steve.
Yeah, thanks very much for having us. And let me address the first part of that question. How do we find the time? For me, I'm interested in serving Santa Cruz as a priority all the time. I don't have a wife or a family or a business. What I have is a love for Santa Cruz and a desire to serve it all the time. So when I am a council member, I will be finding the time to do the programs and create the policies that I need, because I'll have a full-time opportunity to do it. You may have seen in Santa Cruz Weekly recently that I said that I would take my salary and open an office downtown. I intend to do that as well. People should be able to come and talk to their council members about their concerns, and let's get some ideas from them how to increase our tax base, how to improve our economic situation. But my priorities generally would be jobs creation, of course, affordable housing, and if you pass by the table out front, you'll see that I have an entire program for affordable housing. If we create jobs in town, we need to have affordable housing for people to live here. As Jake mentioned, I think it's a very important point. We need to both live here and work here to increase our tax base, and that is two things that are the same side of the same coin, and that's something we really have to do. I think another initiative that I really would like to work on as a council member is forging a true partnership with UCSC. Many of you read the Gibbs report when that was published. It said that we, retailers downtown, the business community, gets the merest fraction of that student retail dollar, that purchasing power that exists with those 16,000 students up there. What we need to do is forge a true partnership, a true economic partnership, a true environmental partnership, and a true technology partnership, so that we are sharing technology with them so that their graduates can stay here, work here, live in affordable housing, and build their businesses, build the new technology base that we need, build the new tax base that we need. Those are the ways that we grow both as a university and as a city. I think that they really are inseparable. We need to forge that kind of a reciprocally beneficial partnership, and I would do everything that I possibly could to make sure that we maximize that economic power that exists on that hill and bring it down into town and make it work for not only us, but for UCSC. 4 years from now, that's what I would see, is that true economic, environmental, and technology partnership with UCSC. I think it's absolutely essential for us to have that. Insofar as present day and near-term tax and revenue increases, I am for the transit occupancy tax. I wanted a 2% increase because I think we could have used that extra money for economic development. I lobbied hard in front of council, as Don knows, and in front of the Board of Supervisors for that 2% increase. We didn't get it, but I'll support the 1% increase because we need that money for economic development. I was initially not for the Warriors. Last night, the City Council approved that project, so like everyone else in town, I'm now going to support it, and I'm going to hope for the best. Thanks very much.
Thank you. Rochelle?
Thank you. Am I choking you or? There we go. It'll show our talent and coordination as council candidates. Hi, good evening. My name's Rochelle Naroyan, and I would say sorry, this isn't working really well. I would say some of the most important issues in the city that we're facing, and what I would like to focus on, of course, I think everybody up here has mentioned it, is economic development. To me, that has many components. That includes tourism. That means we need better signage to get people to circulate around the town and let them know that our downtown exists. Somebody I know said Ocean Street was our downtown. That they thought the Santa Cruz Diner was downtown. So we need to do better at that. We need to find a sustainable fund for the trolley that's moving people between downtown and the beach. I think that's a wonderful addition that we have. It gets them out of their cars as well. We absolutely need to support our economic development team, even though the redevelopment funds are no longer there. We need to find ways for them to continue existing. We need to create more cottage industries here. I think we need more homegrown businesses. People are not going to relocate their business in Santa Cruz, so we need to create them here, and that includes more tech transfers between UC Santa Cruz and the city of Santa Cruz. More coordination between our career technical education classes at high schools at Cabrillo and with UC Santa Cruz to see if we can create more coordination and plan some cottage industries down the road. We need to continue a vibrant downtown. That means enforcing some of our rules which stop antisocial behavior downtown. And we really need to focus on the behavior, because it really doesn't matter if you're wealthy or if you're not. If you're downtown doing things you shouldn't be doing, we need to stop you. It also needs to be a vibrant place for people to go, exciting. I find it quite exciting when it's First Friday and there's so many people down there and there's street musicians out. It really is wonderful. I'd like to see an anchor store come downtown, though. I think that would really improve a lot of things. Public safety is absolutely important. I didn't realize this until recently, but we have a 104% higher property crime rate than the state average. We have a 70% higher violent crime rate than the state average, yet our police department is staffed at 50% of the national average. So that's a problem, and especially when you consider we're not a typical town of 60,000 people. We could have 500,000 people here on any summer day. So it exacerbates the problem even more. I think we could have some more police staffing. Of course, prevention is great, but from what I've learned on a police ride-along, quite a few people in Santa Cruz who commit crimes are not from Santa Cruz. It's kind of a crime tourism circuit, and I really don't want to be on that anymore. I also think this ties into public safety and economic development. I'd love to improve the appearance of our gateways coming into Santa Cruz, coming into Ocean Street, as well as coming in at 1 and 9. It really looks horrible, and I think it gives people the wrong impression about the town we are. Thank you.
Thank you, Rochelle. Cynthia, you are next.
Okay. Thank you. I'm Cynthia Matthews, and as many people will know, I have served 4 terms on the Santa Cruz City Council, so in addition to what I say I will do, I have a strong record of what I have done. And the 3 things that I'm going to mention as priority are 3 things that I have focused on in the past. And I would also say I have the ability now, having been retired, of making this a, if not full-time commitment, at least nearly so. The first priority for me has been economic development. The economy is the basis of jobs, of course, and it is the underpinning of our ability to provide city services. I was first elected to council in 1992, right after the earthquake, not a great time, and that was the savings and loan crash. And then we picked up a little bit, and then we had the dot-com crash, and then we picked up and we had the recent financial crash. So the city's fiscal situation has definitely seen some rises and falls, and I've experienced that. I know that it's very complicated, and I know that it takes a community pulling together. So I was on the Vision Santa Cruz group that planned the reconstruction, refiguring of downtown, and what I learned from that was it's not the government and it's not the private sector, it's not the public sector, it's all those groups. It's the entire community having a shared vision and pulling together in the same direction. And I believe that largely this community does have a shared vision that we want economic vitality. I have worked on that very hard. I've been involved with the Conference and Visitors Council trying to build tourism and expand tourism into ecotourism, cultural tourism. I worked with the downtown businesses and the business districts throughout the city of Santa Cruz and the very many sectors. We have a complicated and rich economy here in Santa Cruz. We're lucky for that. And there's a different strategy to make each one of them thrive, and I'm prepared to do all of that. My second priority is public safety. I was a founder of Downtown Neighbors decades ago, and so my roots are in neighborhood security and developing safe, vibrant, attractive neighborhoods wherever they are in the city. I've seen how important it is that public safety is an underpinning of how we feel about our community. We want to feel safe in our neighborhoods, in our parks, in all of our many business districts around town, and in our schools. And I worked in every single one of those areas with associations and neighborhood groups to make that happen. And finally, it's my fudge factor. My third priority is building partnerships. That's how we get things done. That's how we've done the Marine Center, the Tannery Center, the museum that we're in right now, how we build strong schools. So that's what I think we do. We leverage the resources and we make people feel that they can participate and they're proud of their community.
Thank you, Cynthia. And Micah, if you haven't figured it out, you are next.
Well, one of my highest priorities is to make our economy more sustainable, as everyone else has said. And that's why I wore the suit tonight. If you know me, you know I don't usually wear one, but I want to make it clear if I'm going to a chamber event that I'm going to step up and do whatever, you know, a council member would need to do to really make that a priority. Show respect to your culture, or to a certain extent our culture if I'm on the council.
First time he's worn one since his bar mitzvah.
Oh, that's why you don't have your father come to forums. I do know a lot about the local economy, and I have an idea about how to build on our strengths. I'm on my second little startup, both of them involving bicycles, of course. I helped start Peddlers Express and now Santa Cruz Pedicab. We're hauling tourists around, you know, around the beach. And in case people don't realize, we have twice the national average of entrepreneurial activity in Santa Cruz. We have a very vibrant, you know, microeconomic small business, and I think we need to build on that. It took 2 months for us to get our permit. It had to go through the chief of the traffic division of the police department, who was very good to work with, but I was baffled as to why it had to go through her. And it would have taken 3 or 4 months longer, except one of our competitors starting a pedicab business. He worked for 3 or 4 months before we even went in. So I appreciate him, but it really makes me feel like, gosh, why does it have to take so long to start a small business in Santa Cruz? Even more pertinently, to have an effect, you know, we're all going to say we want more manufacturing jobs. I do too. But I think what we really could have an effect on as a council is the ratio between the economy and housing. So I'd like to roll back some of the ordinances that are preventing us from legally expanding our housing, having permitted housing. I've been endorsed by David Foster, who's a really great housing advocate. I live in a multi-residential neighborhood where everyone parks in front of our houses anyways and goes to the boardwalk. But if we're to add legal housing on our lots, we have to build garages and pave our backyards and not have tandem parking and this whole rigmarole. So I'd like to slowly reduce those requirements so as to allow for more economic activity. I think because of that, I've been endorsed by the Building Trades Council. I'm the only candidate that has been endorsed by the Building Trades Council. I also agree we need to work on our civility and improve our social contract downtown. As I mentioned, I live in the Lower Ocean neighborhood with my 6-year-old and my 1-year-old. I've had people sleep in my front yard all the time. One day I came home and there was someone sleeping on my couch. So it's definitely an obvious problem, and you know, we need to really address it in a roots way, get to the roots of it and try to deal with it. Since I only have 30 seconds left, I'm going to talk about something. It's not my highest priority, but it's something that, since it's no one's highest priority, it's getting left out. And that is, on a local level, reducing the influence of money in politics. For many years, we've had an ordinance that says you can only accept a certain amount of money per person, and you can only spend up to, right now it's $26,000 on a city council race. I don't know who here has adopted that. I purposely didn't look, but I have. And I think we need to slowly get money out of politics at all levels of government. And I've accepted that ordinance because I want to do that. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Hold on to the microphone. I didn't do this, but you're next on the specific. So we're now going to switch to specific questions. These are 90 seconds, a little shorter answer times, and they've been prepared based on a review by the committee who organized the event, based on the answers that the candidates provided and that are available online. So they can be quite specific, and I don't want people to be surprised by that, but they're because of the answers that we've received. Micah, your written answers indicate that you do not believe that it's in the city's best interest to accommodate UCSC growth under the terms of the current UCSC and city agreement. If UCSC refused to amend the agreement to address your concerns as a city council member, what would you do?
I actually am not opposed to all UCSC growth. I think I wrote in my survey that I think if UCSC is to grow, that they need to be held to some mitigation, some stringent standards.
Right,
so,
but I think you also specifically said you did not support the LAFCO, the agreement that's before LAFCO. That's the reason for the question.
Well, I do actually support the amendment to the LAFCO agreement by John Leopold. So there's in case people don't realize, there's a big discussion going on about.
Right, but just to follow up, but the point is that this discussion here is that this UCSC has said that that's a problem. And so what we're trying to find out from you is what happens if UCSC doesn't agree to that change. Right.
Well, Doug, I know you get this. I thought I'd give a little background because this is it's great you're asking such a specific question, but I think we need a little background here. So as part of the contract with UCSC, UCSC has to ask for permission from LAFCO as far as water usage from the city in order to expand. So there's been an issue in terms of how much water they could use. Supervisor Leopold has said that they have to make any future development water neutral. In other words, they can grow, but they can't use any more water. And that's what I support. It's somewhat with appreciation of UCSC that I do support it, because UCSC over the last decade has reduced their water every year. And I'm not trying to punish them for that, but I can say, look, they know how to do it. Obviously, they know how to reduce their water usage even while they have been growing. So I want to support them in continuing to do that and to have a truly water neutral growth. That's what Leopoldo suggested, that you take the water they're using this year, and that's how much water they're allocated for the next decade, 2 decades or whatever. So I'm not opposed to UCSC growth, but with regard to water, I want to ask them to continue to build on their excellent program and not use more of this scarce resource.
Great, thank you. Cynthia, we find you a microphone, I hope. In the past 5 years, the economic environment has experienced radical changes. You mentioned you've seen more than just the last 5 years change. Please describe the roles that you believe the public sector and the private sector, respectively, should play in envisioning and planning economic development in the new environment, particularly without redevelopment.
Well, I think the main thing is regular communication and participation between those two sectors, absent a crisis, because we all know that when you hit hard times, it's better if you've got a good relationship. I did mention in my previous answer my involvement in a number of business associations and business endeavors around town, and I think that's very productive because you begin to understand what the realities are. So it's important that the city and the city council make a commitment to reach out. One thing I did as mayor one year was to go out and talk with representatives of local businesses, mostly in the high-tech sector that year, and say, what's your obstacle to doing business? What do you like about doing business here? It was very instructive. And I think, and that's been done with other sectors too. So I think that both the informal communication and the participation in various economic endeavors is really, really important. I think we do a good job of that. We have to sustain it. Another thing I would say is just, again, making that commitment towards a shared goal. We have a general plan. Our general plan had very broad community involvement, including involvement from the business sector. It was adopted virtually without controversy, and that gives us a roadmap for the future. So I think we have a good plan ahead of us. We now have to work towards fulfilling that general plan.
Thank you. Rochelle, you want to pick that up? Your written answers indicate support for investment in lodging facilities in the city of Santa Cruz. However, there have been, as we all know, several significant lodging development proposals, such as the La Bahia Hotel and a conference facility at the Dream Inn, that have just not come to fruition. What would you do as a city council member to increase the probability of proposals like that succeeding in the future?
Well, obviously, I have an open mind, willing to listen to suggestions for different development down in the beach area. I think it's very appropriate for a La Bahia type development to be proposed. Obviously, we had a huge blow at the Coastal Commission, and so perhaps staying within the height limits might be to our best interest at this point, even though I didn't have a problem with the height limits going up. The law does allow for a 60% variance when something does go before the Coastal Commission. We need to reach out, like the Marriott Courtyard is scheduled to go down in the beach area. I think they've hit some snags with the economy. And so there's some things that are just beyond our control. I've been trying to get a refinance on my home, and I know how difficult it is to get any sort of loan today. And, I don't know if the city has any sort of pull with lenders more than business people do, but if we do, we need to get in there and help. But I think the main thing is being open to the idea and to being willing to accept new ideas for growth down on the beach area. I'm not quite sure. The opposition that was there really confused me, because it was a type of project that would have employed people who have a very difficult time staying in Santa Cruz. And I think access to the coast is not just about who gets to visit Santa Cruz, but who gets to live here. And those types of projects would have allowed different types of people to live here.
Thank you. Steve, we get the microphone over to you.
Yes, sir.
Your written answers indicate that you believe reducing police and private security presence in the downtown would create an atmosphere that's more conducive to tourist and local business. How do you believe that reducing local law enforcement presence would improve the atmosphere for tourists and shoppers?
Well, when I go downtown, just like any other tourist, I look around and I see that we have the downtown hosts who do a great job. I see that we have the first alarm security folks for whom we just voted a new contract, to contract extension, and they do a job. But we have police patrolling, 2 in a car, up and down the streets, and I think that it creates an atmosphere that, well, you're afraid, that we're afraid to be downtown, we're afraid to shop, we're afraid to enjoy ourselves as tourists or residents. I think we need to take that kind of police presence and push it farther out in the neighborhoods. I'm all for public safety. I'm for as much public safety as we can afford, and I think we can afford the very best public safety in the country. But we need to have those patrolmen out in the neighborhoods. They need to be protecting the neighborhoods. They need to be patrolling the neighborhoods. We need to have the volunteers in policing, which is a wonderful program, out doing non-enforcement type policing in the neighborhoods. That's how we make ourselves a more safe community. And also, I think a community that doesn't look at itself in the downtown area and say, why are there so many police cars driving up and down our streets? I know that Rochelle has quoted some of the statistics that our crime rate is increasing, that is disproportionate to our population. You know, that may very well be, but I don't think that it's a reason for us to have as much police presence downtown, particularly in light of the fact that our atmosphere should be light and cultural and enjoyable. And that's what my answer reflected.
Thank you. Jake, can we get you? Oh, you have one. There we go. What past experience have you had in community service and local government? And what do you believe are the most important things you will have to learn to become a valuable city council member?
Well, there's obviously a lot of things that I need to learn to become a city council member because I'm 28 years old and I'm kind of entering an arena with a lot of seasoned politicians. I need to learn to work with nonprofit organizations that I haven't had that much experience working with. And since I've declared my candidacy, I've had the pleasure of fielding a lot of emails from people who have concerns, and I'm saying, bring them on. I like to hear what everybody's concerns are. And then the past experience I have volunteering. I volunteered at Santa Cruz High helping with the baseball team and the football team, trying to keep kids out of trouble. I volunteered helping coach the surf team and have them practice at Steamers Lane on Wednesday afternoons, and another way to keep kids out of trouble and keep them away from gangs and stuff. So that's my experience volunteering my time, and as I'm sure all of you can imagine, I'm absolutely hoping to volunteering a lot more of my time in the future, being that I'm running for Santa Cruz City Council.
Thank you. Cece, you have experience as both the president of a teachers union and at a different time as an elected school trustee. What assurance can you give taxpayers that you will be a strong advocate for their interests in employee contract negotiations?
Well, let me tell you a little bit about who I am and how I come by my answer. My dad graduated from Santa Cruz High School in 1936. I graduated from Santa Cruz High School in 1975, and my daughter graduated from Santa Cruz High School in 1999. That I've sat on both sides of the bargaining table makes me a strategic planner. It makes me an educated collaborator, and I can see things from many different perspectives, and that's what you need to do to be able to collaborate and be a bridge builder, of which I am. I believe it makes me the best qualified candidate because I've sat on both of those sides. And as they say, it is true. You don't know where I've been till you've walked a mile in my shoes, and that I've been able to be very successful at both sides of that table. When I was the union president of the Classified Employees Union, I got the food service workers an 8% raise, which was unheard of. And that was predominantly a women's profession. It was the profession that I started out in. I started out working in the school district as a food service person. I was able to then, move on and become the school board member so I could give back and change things for the working people, and I did that. So I like I said, I've been on both sides, and I can guarantee you I can see things from a strategic place and see the side of management and see the side of labor.
Thank you. We'll have to talk. My uncle was class of 36. So, Pam is next. You indicate that you would support, oh, I'm sorry, Don is next. I jumped ahead. You indicate that the
It's
city-
okay, you can go.
Yeah.
Right.
You don't want to miss this one. You indicate that the city cannot eliminate the risks of private sector investor taking a project through a public democratic process. But isn't that just what the Downtown Recovery Plan did? And similar specific plans, area plans, and development plans are created to do. That is, making the issuance of building permits that conform to those plans an over-the-counter process. Shouldn't the city develop some priority project areas like this to encourage key economic investments?
Yes, to the last part of your question. The reason I wanted to really emphasize, say that I didn't believe that the city can eliminate risk was not to say that this was not about saying the city shouldn't do everything it can to reduce that risk. But I think this community really has pretty high expectations. And so what I think the solution to balance the needs of the community with the balance of business and development is to engage. And that this is really a good opportunity for me to talk about something that just happened with the city. We couldn't eliminate the risk of the Warriors proposing an arena in Santa Cruz, but we could put a lot of effort into expediting the process without shortcutting, but really trying to move it quickly. We can put a lot of our attention to making things right for the neighborhood. The neighborhood does have a right to raise their concerns, and then we have to take them seriously, but then we put those things together with that expediting on one hand, building in the conditions that solve community problems on the other hand, and that's the way we really minimize risk, because even a project that's really excellent can engender community opposition, and we need to work with that.
Thank you. Pam.
I'm ready.
All right. You indicate that you would support infrastructure for a safer and cleaner downtown for families to enjoy. As a member of the City Council, what specific actions would you recommend the city take to further improve the safety and cleanliness of downtown Santa Cruz?
Well, I think that there have been some amazing steps taken in that direction lately with the First Alarm and the downtown hosts patrolling the area to free up police to work in other areas. I took a tour of the library today and had some amazing feedback from Teresa Landers about how successful the security guard has been there. And that is a place where families go to quite a bit and should be encouraged to go to more frequently. In the downtown area, as far as cleanliness goes, I think that we've recently stepped up the pace on cleaning the sidewalks, and I think if we just continue to partner with the merchants and empower them to clean up their space, or have a relationship with someone in Public Works so they can report areas that need to be cleaned up, that would be key, and it would build a partnership between the city and the business owner as well.
Great. Thank you. Everyone gets to take a deep breath, and we will move on to round two. Rochelle, you're actually someone, I don't know whether they did these out of the hat or how this worked, but you've indicated support for implementing planned improvements at the intersection of Highway 1 and 9. What do you believe are the principal barriers to these upgrades, and what will you do as a council member to overcome those barriers?
Well, one of the barriers obviously is cost. Finding the funds to be able to do such a large infrastructure project. But I'm hopeful. There's a bill right now, and I'm looking through my notes because I want to make sure that I say it correctly. It's very technical terms. In response to the redevelopment agencies going away, there's a Senate Bill 214, and Jerry Brown hopefully will sign it into law before September 30th. It allows cities and counties to create infrastructure financing districts without voter approval, IFDs can divert property tax increment revenues for 30 years to finance highways, transit, water systems, all sorts of different infrastructure projects. It's actually a lot looser in terms of redevelopment funds and how we can spend it. And you don't have to have the requirement that it's going to improve a blighted area. So I see some hope that maybe that's a tool cities will be able to use to finance things like the 1 in 9 improvement. There's also debate internally as to whether or not we should even do this. Should we be putting money into roads? You know, a lot of people come to Santa Cruz from far away. They're not going to bicycle in, unfortunately. We don't have a train option right now. And it just looks terrible. It's an embarrassment. It is a blight when people come into town and that's their first impression of Santa Cruz is this crumbling road, this junky looking intersection, and just massive traffic that makes you want to run away the other direction. So I'm hopeful that that'll come through. Thank you.
Thank you. Steve,
Yes, sir.
you indicated economic development was of highest importance. What are the 3 things you would do as a city council member that would have the greatest impact on economic development?
Well, I think, as I said earlier, a partnership, a true partnership with UCSC to generate the economic base and the economic power that they have there and bring it down into the city to all of our businesses is absolutely essential. But also as part of that, and I mentioned the 2 sides of the same coin, is affordable housing. We really need to get true affordable housing plans here. And I'm talking about smaller units, smaller developments that we don't need large tax credits for or larger partners outside of our ability really to do it ourselves. I'm talking about, you know, the 4 and 6 and 8 unit developments that people can actually afford and that can actually live here and work here. I do have some ideas about how we can generate some extra jobs in the city. I would like to see us develop a conservation corps using some of the money that's in surplus for our water department so that we can hire people to restore our watersheds, to go maintain our parks, to really make our parks and open spaces even more beautiful and more accessible to everybody than they already are. I think, and we were talking about how you're going to try to beautify or maintain the quality of life downtown. Well, we have Hope Services, and they do a wonderful job down there. But you know, there are a lot of people who are out of work right now who would love to have the opportunity to go down and help us keep the streets and parks clean in Santa Cruz. And if you go downtown or anywhere around town and you look at the amount of litter that we have, the amount of refuse we have, and the amount of unemployed people who would love to go down and help us beautify our city, that's something that we're missing the ball on right now.
Thank you. Jake, we get you a microphone. You indicate that you find the cost of obtaining a building permit in the city to be too high. What would you do as a city council member to cause these costs to be reduced? And how would you adjust the city's budget for the loss of the revenue?
Well, I want to answer the second question first. How would I adjust the city's budget for the loss in revenue? I think it would kind of take its course naturally because we'd be allowed to grow and build more things if there wasn't so much red tape put in front of people trying to do business, obtain permits. You know, I'm actually kind of jealous of Micah. He said that there's a 2 or 3 month wait for his permit, and you know, and I've been used to ones that can last up to a year in construction. And some of the things that I would do is just cut down on all of the people who need to have a say and not have a say, but first you got to call the water department before you talk to the fire chief, and then he's got to talk to this guy who, you know, and then you need a permit to go into the ground and this and that, and there needs to be one permit that you go get that encompasses all of the activities that you're going to do to build a house. There should be one permit you do, and it takes care of everything. And that would actually be cheaper for the city too. And so maybe there's where we could kind of get some of those funds back.
Thank you. Cece, you describe edutourism as an economic development opportunity. Please describe what edutourism is and what you estimate the number of edutourists and expenditures in Santa Cruz might be and what would be required to develop this industry.
Okay, I mentioned it a little bit earlier, but I'll go over it thoroughly right now. So, as I said, lawyers, doctors, nurses, tradesmen, teachers all need to do continuing education units. So rather than going online and going, oh, I need to go to Connecticut to get this class, I'm going to come to Santa Cruz. And I'm going to take this class. I'm going to be here for 2 weeks or a week. I'm going to stay in our hotels. I'm going to bring my family to go to the boardwalk, and I'm going to take this class on, how to build the Apple iPod app or whatever it is. That's my example. And so each person that has to, take a class will come here instead of somewhere else, and they'll be, like I said, they'll be housed at different places. How much money will it bring in? That was the second part of the question. Yeah. Approximately for it could be a year-round project. I haven't really crunched all the numbers yet, but, I expect it to be like a regular small business that brings in, probably about, $75,000 a year. It's not a big thing to start off with, but the project itself is not about a model of necessarily bringing in a whole bunch of revenue, but it's a model to then bring an business incubator here. So everybody says, let's have business incubators here in Santa Cruz. And I'm saying, let's have a little project that proves that we deserve to have a business incubator here, that we are a viable place to have a business. Here's something that we've done that have brought the two largest businesses in Santa Cruz together, which is the university and the boardwalk.
Thank you. Don. The Gibbs Santa Cruz retail market analysis found that 85 cents of every dollar spent in our trade area by our trade area residents is spent outside of the city. A principal constraint that has been identified is what's called the ambiance of downtown, created by people whose behavior at best distracts and at worst drives away shoppers. What do you believe are the next steps in making this ambiance better?
This is for very fortuitous timing. Literally today, I had a meeting with not a well-known business person, but of a fairly substantial business downtown, who had indicated to me that he was going to be willing to invest some of his money into increasing the downtown outreach social worker hours that we currently are funding by the city. So currently we have one person for the whole downtown for, as many hours, for 40 hours a week, doing outreach to, to really work with people who are having behavioral issues downtown. And that's good, but it's not enough. So I'm working with this person, and hopefully I'll probably be talking to you, Doug, about it too, that we might get to 2, and we might have more hours of an outreach social worker. The police department, the businesses, all are really, really supportive of that particular tool that the city funds right now. It's very effective. And if it's really effective with one person, it can be tremendously effective with 2 people doing it. We can cover more hours. We can spend more time with individuals really problem solving and not just having quick interactions, but actually working with them to get them off the streets.
Thank you. Pam. Your candidacy seems to have been motivated in significant part by concerns about public safety, including gangs, downtown behavior, and neighborhood threats.
Right.
What actions, if any, of city councils in the recent past have resulted in a shortfall in public safety, and what would you do as a council member to improve it?
That's a good question. I don't really like to lay blame because I think that our crime is here for a variety of reasons, and it's a culmination of things that have happened over many, many years and decades, perhaps even. But I know there was, the recent reduction in the police department budget. I think about 7 years ago they had 104 officers, and now they're around 85. So I think that that's a decision the city council made at some point. And what was the second part of the question? Was it
Well,
how would I change that?
what actions would you do as a city council member to improve it? What would you like to see happen?
I think that what city council do, they can help work with the police to create new policies that may make it easier to do their job. So instead of hiring new officers, maybe we need to look at ways of being more efficient. Don just had a suggestion about more hours for the social service worker where, I'm hearing from police officers that often that's what they're spending their time doing is addressing social issues. So maybe we could just streamline, we could get a little more balance so that the police are doing their work to prevent and protect, and the rest of us are doing our part to keep our neighborhoods safe. I have a history of engaging the community for common causes in my work at Take Back Santa Cruz and as a commissioner on the Prevention of Violence Against Women. So I'd continue to bring people together for the solution. It's not going to come, solving crime in our city is not going to come from one place. It's going to take all of us.
Thank you. Micah, your questionnaire response argues against the current efforts of the Santa Cruz Police, Parks, and Public Works Departments to eradicate illegal campsites within the city. Are you opposed to the so-called sleeping ban within the city limits, and what limitations would you impose and enforce on people who camp within the city limits?
Well, again, I wrote that survey, and I don't remember specifically being opposed to specific measures. I do think that along the lines of what Dawn was talking about, that we need to get to the roots of these issues of homelessness, drug abuse, mental instability. I'm glad you found a business sponsor to help with the social worker. I live in the neighborhood where the first alarm security guards regularly drive around the river levees. I don't think that program is particularly helpful. I literally see, drug abusers jump in the bushes, when they see the car coming. So I personally feel like that's a program that is not particularly helping. We could reinvest the money in social workers, like you said, in housing the most vulnerable homeless who are currently a huge drain on our economy, as well as being a problem out in the streets. So in essence, my approach to this really serious issue is to not, spend $1 million moving them around, but instead to get to the roots of the problem, incrementally eliminate homelessness, and work hard on developing a better social contract between those of us that live downtown and those of us that are hanging out downtown without homes.
Thank you. Cynthia.
Okay, just to backtrack for those who aren't familiar with that topic. Several years ago, after many, many years of unproductive litigation and ill will, as the university was adopting its long-range development plan, and the city had very serious issues with components of that long-range development plan, including, most significantly, university growth impacts on housing, on water consumption, and on traffic. The city and university mutually agreed to enter into a mediated long-term process, took about a year, and they ultimately entered into a settlement agreement that resolved these issues with significant mitigations. Among those was the agreement, which the university said it didn't have to do, but it agreed to do, to go to LAFCO on issues surrounding extension of water service to its North Campus area. I see I have 30 seconds left. My feeling is that there were enormous benefits to the city and to the university from that settlement agreement, including the 3 areas I mentioned, but also neighborhood issues and economic partnership and so forth. That was a great gain. I would hate to see the LAFCO agreement scuttle all of this. If that were to happen, I would go back to the drawing board and try and achieve those same goals once again.
Thank you. I believe that completes round 2. If I left anyone out, and I apologize. No, take another one. We'll now move on to round 3 again, the 90-second format, and we'll begin with Jake. You indicate that you believe the city's pension costs to be too high, but that you also value the work that is done by the city's employees. As a city council member, what instructions would you give the city manager and other negotiators for the city regarding their negotiations with the employees union about pensions?
Well, I don't want to take anything away from anybody's retirement, but people making over $100,000 a year in retirement takes away from what we as city council members would be able to offer the city in return. So for somebody to sit at home or even go double dip in another county working while we're paying their retirement is just not in the picture. Well, it's happening, but it can't be part of our future. I don't want to take anyone's livelihood away. I want every Santa Cruzan to be able to live here for as long as they want and to have a good life. But some of this stuff is just out of control, and I absolutely stand behind what I say, that some of these pensions need to be reformed.
Thank you. Cece, you indicated that you support the attraction of a UCSC Human Genome Project to Institute to Santa Cruz. What would you do as a city council member bring to to bring a project like that to Santa Cruz?
Well, certainly everything I can. The commercialization of research and inventions developed at UCSC and the wide range of support services that are associated or are untapped resources. And we want to create partnerships and the creation of research and development and business incubation centers, encouraging entrepreneurs to locate here. So specifically what I would do, well, I've met with different people up there already. I've met with, Donna Blitzer and Donna Murphy, and I am hoping to meet with more partners up there at UCSC, and I just want to bridge that town-gown gap, and I think that this is the way to do it. If we are able to house the Human Genome Project Institute here in Santa Cruz, that will bring scientists from all over the world, and they will need to eat somewhere and stay somewhere and study somewhere, and they will want to do their research here, and we are in a good position to get that. Right now, MIT and Johns Hopkins are fighting over where that institute's going to be held, and because we have our guy Hausler, who actually sat there and mapped or coded the human genome. I'm not very articulate at this, but because we had our UCSC guy actually map that, code that here, we're in a position that we could actually get that institute. So, thank you.
Thank you. Dawn, you indicate that you believe it is premature to express an opinion about desalination, but would support it if there's no other viable alternative. There are a number of other alternatives that have been presented over the past 20 years. Have you heard any alternatives that you consider to be viable as they have been presented? If not, how will you determine when to stop looking? And if so, what is the city currently doing to follow up on those alternatives to desal? How's that for a long question?
Yeah, that was a lot. Don't I get 95 seconds for that?
Yeah.
The way we got to this situation is that we spent 20 years as a community looking at a whole range of alternative to solve our water shortage. And we created an integrated water plan now 7 years ago that named desal as a key component of meeting our water needs. And there are people in the community who don't buy it. They just don't believe that that's the only way we can get to where we need to go. I tend to think that the research and the studying and so forth do suggest that that is the best way to go and that there really aren't alternatives that are going to add up to enough. But I think because there's skepticism in the community, we have to spend some more time looking at the alternatives that people are suggesting. For instance, but here's the problem. One of the key ones is that a lot of people believe there's a huge amount of water that could be exchanged between the Soquel Creek Water District and the Santa Cruz District. But now that the county water resources manager has really done a lot of work kind of crunching the numbers, it's demonstrated that there is some potential there, but compared to the need of the city of Santa Cruz, it just doesn't look like that there's enough there. And it also is not enough for the Soquel Creek Water District. They have even a bigger problem. If we don't come up with something more, their aquifer will be destroyed, and that's an environmental catastrophe that goes very deep and would be something we really have to make sure we don't allow to happen.
Thank you. Pam, you and Rochelle are the first technologists in the admittedly modest memories of the people putting these questions together to run for city council, which is, we hope, a significant milestone for Santa Cruz. What would you as a member of the city council do to ensure that broadband was available and affordable throughout the city?
Oh, to make it more affordable? Well, typically that's done through a private-public partnership, but it's still unbelievably expensive. So I would look at other municipalities and maybe even contact some broadband suppliers and see what we could do, what we could work out, what have they done for other people. I definitely see the value It would increase productivity. It would create business opportunities here. I would love to see a partnership with Cruise.io, maybe make it local. Provide that broadband from a local company would be a win-win.
Great. Thank you. Micah, find that microphone. While you indicate that economic development is of highest importance to you, you've also expressed reservations or restrictive conditions you'd like to impose about items like improving the Highway 1 and 9 intersection, developing a downtown parking structure, increasing the city's water supply. What are the 2 or 3 things you would propose that the city council do that would result in increased jobs, capital investment, and a larger tax base?
Yeah, that's a great question. It'll be hard in 90 seconds. Since you asked me the question about the UCSD compact, I've been just sitting here thinking, that's exactly what the city should do. We should be creating boundaries on development and creating conditions for development. That's the role of good government. But then we should also be encouraging the kind of development that we want. So specifically, to encourage economic development, I think we should reduce some of the parking ordinances. I know you're got to be familiar with this because you're a developer. If I have a kid and I want to add a bedroom to my house, I have to build a garage for at least $30,000, pave my backyard. They don't allow tandem parking. There's, and this thing about having to require parking really stops a lot of otherwise good developments. And lately, a lot of the big players, the city council is understandably lowering those requirements. But for small people, like Jake here, they're building little developments. It's very hard because of parking. I also think we should incrementally, and I mean incrementally in both cases, raise the height requirements. If we would have raised the height requirement on Beach Street and then gone through the admittedly arduous process of getting that approved by the Coastal Commission, then everyone on Beach Street could have built a higher building, and we would not have had a 2-year, struggle about a particular project. So instead of, looking at each project and having a big community argument about it, I think we should slowly relax the requirements incrementally and with respect to neighborhoods for development.
Thank you. Cynthia, you indicate that you're in favor of development of an additional downtown parking structure. What do you think are the principal impediments to the development of such a structure, and what would you expect to accomplish as a city council member in the next 4 years to overcome them?
Well, I would say there are really 2 impediments. One is cost. Parking structures are expensive, and the other is the political process. It's change, it's different, but I do feel that in order to achieve many of the goals that I talked earlier about shared goals, many of the shared goals that we have for our downtown, which is to, for example, enliven Front Street and the underutilized lots along Front Street, to activate the commercial district south of Laurel. We do not currently have the capacity to do that and provide adequate parking if our currently built downtown is fully occupied. What we see downtown right now is a lot of vacancies. So if people go downtown and say, oh, I don't have much trouble parking, well, that's because there are a lot of vacancies. We hope that will turn around, and we're doing what we can as a council to get those businesses filled up. But in order to achieve the kind of future infill and intensity, Micah referred to intensity, I think that represents smart growth. It means we can combine commercial uses and housing, but it does require additional parking capacity. So I think it's consistent with our general plan, but it will take over time building money, and it will take building support, both within the commercial district and the community.
Thank you. Rochelle. You've expressed support for use of the bill that would permit the formation of infrastructure financing districts, if signed by Governor Brown, as a way to replace some of the funding lost through the dissolution of the city's redevelopment agency. If that bill is signed, what do you believe will be the hurdles the city will face and have to overcome to form a district? And what would you do as a city council member to overcome them?
It's a difficult question to ask because the bill hasn't passed yet. So to have the specifics on exactly how a city or a county goes about becoming an infrastructure financing district is difficult to foresee. But in terms of difficulties, I'm not quite sure why there would be one. The bill is meant to make this an easy process for cities and counties. As the state has recognized, they've taken an important tool away from cities and counties to use. So I don't really foresee major problems. Of course, the devil is in the detail. And when we go to form this, there might be lawsuits. This is one thing that was mentioned, because IFDs right now, they exist, but it needs to be done by a vote of the people. This bill allows them to be formed without a vote of the electorate. And so it could get held up in court, and that is the one difficulty involved. But I don't see a negative to the Santa Cruz City Council jumping in feet first to see if this would work for us.
Thank you. Steve has realized that he is last in this group.
Thank you, Doug. Appreciate it.
You are among the most frequently interviewed of the Occupy Santa Cruz participants. Please describe how your goals and your participation in the Occupy movement are similar to your goals as a city council candidate, and also how they're different.
Well, they're different because the decision-making process from Occupy and from City Council is completely two different things. As you know, there's a consensus process with the Occupy, which is difficult for me. I'm a former lawyer, and what I do is I identify a problem and I look at the solutions, and I'm a very linear problem solver. But with the Occupy, you had kind of a consensus where everybody was, putting their 2 cents worth in. You figure, okay, now we've reached a decision. It was an excruciating process for somebody like me who was a linear problem solver. What I did learn through the Occupy is there are social and economic problems that we can solve through the consensus, through working together. And I think the Occupy parallels what happens with the City Council, where they all form a consensus, where they're all looking for the best interest of the city. And even though all those folks don't agree about what the right solution is for the problem at the time, they're all moving toward a solution that they think reflects their own personal goals and what they believe is social and economic justice. I've learned through the Occupy that one of the ways that I can help our fellow citizens is to protect them against foreclosures. As a homeowner bill of rights, I'm still working with the Occupy and the Occupy Foreclosure Working Group. We have just last week filed 2 grand jury complaints looking into the Assessor Recorder's Office to make sure that those foreclosure documents are entirely right and accurate. And people getting thrown out of their homes in our city, in our county, is unconscionable. And if we can't work together as occupiers, as city council members, then we have failed our community.
Thank you. We have completed round 3. Congratulations. We're into our last creative phase. This is, you'll have 3 minutes if you choose to take them for this one. And let me throw the question out. Every city, most cities, some I guess might not, has a brand identity. It is what people think about when they hear the name of the city. Las Vegas is close to home, Austin, Salt Lake, Annapolis, Daytona Beach, Omaha. I don't know why we left off Big Apple, but anyway. What do you think the brand of Santa Cruz is today? And what way could that brand be improved, and what would you do as a city council member to make it better? We are going to reverse the order here and start with Micah.
Well, when you run into people that aren't from Santa Cruz, you say you're from Santa Cruz, they get a little wistful, and I think Santa Cruz has a really good brand right now. Small and beautiful comes to mind. Creative, out-of-the-box thinking. And I'm used to branding things. I branded 2 small businesses that were both, small and out-of-the-box thinking, bicycle delivery and pedicab services. And I would be part of a process. I think it is important that city council members are part of a process of branding our city effectively. It goes back to what I was talking about a few minutes ago about boundaries. I think Santa Cruz can be a place that can stand up and be proud and say, we have green belts, we have natural limits to our city. We have limits on the types of developments or the quantity of development that we have in our city. We're the city that believes in a rail and trail project of a trolley and a bike path. We're not the city that widens our freeways to 8 lanes and tries to turn into another megalopolis. So I think that we can stand by our strengths about being an environmental city, a green city, a beautiful city, and I think that we can play those up as a way to attract attention, commercial attention, ecotourism, As I said, I've been one of the leaders of the Rail and Trail proposal now for 20 years, and if we have a trolley and trail system that goes from Davenport to Monterey and connects to the high-speed rail for the rest of the state, we're going to give people an opportunity to really come to Santa Cruz in the way we want to see them, which is on their bikes, on foot, enjoying our town, riding in our pedicabs, and that's the vision that I have: a green city, a commercially viable city, and a city that is distinct but is proud and successful.
Thank you. Cynthia. Branding time.
Well, I like this question. I served on the chamber board for several years, and this was a question that Bill Teisling was always going, what's our brand for Santa Cruz? And I think the assumption was the brand of Santa Cruz is tarnished by the social behaviors on downtown. You know, that's an issue. But I think our brand is great, and our brand is versatile. And I think when people think of Santa Cruz, they think of a whole lot of different things depending on where their life is. A lot of people, what do they think of? They think of that red dot that says Santa Cruz. I mean, that brand is all over the world. A lot of people, they think surf, they think O'Neill, they think the beach. I went through a similar exercise with the Conference and Visitors Council, brought in a whole professional independent consultants interviewing stakeholders and community members. What did people think of? They thought of the beach, fun, outside the box. You know, so this work is being done. There's no one answer. UCSC, people, I mean, all credit. Oh, he went away. My husband's at Lick Observatory. I mean, you know, if astronomy's your thing, you think of science, you think of astrophysics. We're known for our creative culture here. You think of the world-class artists that are here in Santa Cruz that draw attention. Franz Lanting. You think of the Cabrillo Festival. We get the New York Times. I mean, there's hardly a week goes by that Santa Cruz isn't written up for good things in the paper of record for the country. It's amazing. You think of the environment. We're doing cutting-edge things. The Monterey Bay National Marine Sanctuary. If you're into marine science and ocean protection, that's what you think of. Foodies, you think of the fine wines, artisan food, organic food, culture coming out of Santa Cruz. If you're into food and wine, that's what you're going to think of. So I'd say give it up on the single brand thing. We have so much going for us. And that's when we talk about economic development. It's no one thing. It's all these things. And I think the challenge and delight of a council member is to tap into all that creativity and energy and potential. And that's our brand.
Thank you. Rochelle, you want to grab that one?
That's a hard one to follow.
Yeah.
Well, what was interesting, I grew up in Santa Cruz, and so I, of course, had to go away to college, and I happened to go to Fresno State and ended up going to school with a lot of people who come to Santa Cruz for their vacations starting from the time they were little kids. My family came here on vacation to get away from the Central Valley heat and farming. And so the stories about Santa Cruz and my family can go back to our scrapbooks. And one of the first things that comes to my mind, why people come here, is because it's fun, it's enjoyable, it's beautiful. You come here and you feel relaxed. And that's what Santa Cruz looked like back in the 1940s when my grandparents would come here. And then I got to see Santa Cruz again this summer through the eyes of a French exchange student that we housed in our home and several of the other students that were here with her. And to describe some of the words they used were amazing, fun, vibrant, friendliest place they've ever been. So those are some of the other brands. Now, one thing that's a little funny is being of Armenian descent, I met a lot of Armenian students who grew up in Fresno. Well, they call Santa Cruz the Armenian Riviera because so many Armenian families come here on break during the summer to escape the heat. A lot of them will come stay for 3-4 weeks. Some of them have summer homes here. So I think that's, I don't know if I'd call it the Armenian Riviera, but maybe the California Riviera or the Central Coast Riviera, I think would be great branding. But when I think of Santa Cruz, a lot like Cynthia said, it's variety. You're going to come to Santa Cruz, and if you want to drink wine, we have it. If you want great food, we have it. If you ride on a roller coaster, we have it. We've got shopping in downtown Santa Cruz if you want a unique shopping experience. So I think there's so many great ways to brand Santa Cruz. And, you know, I'm surprised that there isn't a, at least I haven't seen it, a book. I don't know where our tourist book is. I would have thought by now that there would have been one, and even thought of writing one myself because family from out of town says that I want to take them to too many things when they come here, that I tire them out. But there are just so many great things to go see, and I think that that's what we need to emphasize. It's not one area. One of the titles for the book that I had was The Boardwalk and Beyond. In other words, I love the boardwalk, but there's more here, and you can come stay here for a week and have a great time.
Thank you. Steve, you're next up on this one.
Oh, thanks a lot. Now, I don't care what anybody says. We're still Surf City, as far as I'm concerned. You know, when I think of Santa Cruz and think of what our branding is, I think of our beaches. I think that we're, you know, a national symbol of surfing. Anybody who loves, you know, to be out on a beach in the sun, enjoy the vibrancy of just being in this city, that's the brand name that I think we carry. But moving into the future, I think we're going to be the gateway to the Monterey Bay National Marine Sanctuary. I think we're going to be a university city. And I think we may also be a city that is willing to live within its natural environment. You know, we're smart, we're vibrant, we're generous, but we know how to live within the environment that we're creating for ourselves. We know how to be water sustainable. We know how to be ecologically sound. We know how to recycle, which is something that I think that we will be identified for in the future as much as any city in California, as much as any city in the country, because we believe that that is where we should be. We believe that we should be energy independent. We believe that we are independent in ourselves, and that's why people live here. And that's why they love Santa Cruz, because it is that spirit, you know, that makes us all strong. And I think that's conveyed, and it just goes out into all other areas of this country when they think of Santa Cruz. That's what they think about, the vibrancy, the surf, the love. And now I think they will be thinking about, you know, that we can live sustainable, we can live with the technology age, we can live with a great university on a hill, and we can do all this together. But the short answer, we are Surf City.
Thank you. Jake, you're next up.
That was what I was going to say. It is, though. It's absolutely Surf City, USA. I've always thought that. And I don't care what Huntington Beach says either. They can, you know. Anyways, though, but I think that the rich surfing community here has attracted artists and musicians and free thinkers to come here and to enjoy the beautiful scenery and the beaches and the green space and the mountains that we all, members of the community, hold so dear to us. One thing, though, is I like to re-bring up is that the beaches in Santa Cruz are ranked amongst the most polluted in the state, which to be Surf City, USA is unacceptable. And I'd like to be an example in the future for every other city and every other beach community in the state that they're the ones doing it right. Their beaches are the cleanest. And this is the most beautiful city in the world. And it deserves some attention. The environment deserves some attention. But Surf City, USA, absolutely, that's it. That's what it'll always be.
All right. Thank you. I think Cece, let's see. Yeah, Cece, you're up next. Thanks.
What first comes to my mind is celebrating diversity. You know, we are the crossroads. So Santa Cruz means Holy Cross. This is the crossroads. For example, you know, we need hotels and we build hotels, but we also protect the environment. You know, we're balanced. We're balanced and we're bold. We are where the mountains meet the ocean. We need jobs, but we also need to take care of our workforce, and we do those things. And, you know, as our local historian and author, Jeff Dunn, said, Santa Cruz is in the heart, and that's the name of the book. And he's working on Santa Cruz is in the Heart, too, right now. Also, you know, my grandson probably said it the best. He just turned 5 years old, and he went to kindergarten, and he insisted on wearing a Native American headdress with a feather at the top. And he went into kindergarten and he said, I am half black and half white, like Obama. And there you have it.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Don?
This is one of those questions where it was kind of good to not go first, because I don't think I have a lot of original ideas, but I'm just thinking, well, there are so many quick words and phrases that come to mind. I mean, our brand, it's the beach and boardwalk, it's surfing and skating, it's incredible arts and creative community. It's an innovative community. It's an entrepreneurial community. We're environmental pioneers. There's an incredible outdoor recreation community, bike cycling and hiking people, very health conscious, a lot of tolerance for all those other things. If we're going to have all that, we have to be tolerant of each other. So I think those are all important words to think about when we think about our brand. But when I think about it, really for me as a resident of Santa Cruz, the word that comes to mind is lucky. Who doesn't feel, who lives in Santa Cruz, like we are lucky to live in Santa Cruz? And who doesn't talk to friends from other places who say, you are so lucky to live in Santa Cruz? And so it's all that stuff that adds up to, it's really our name. We don't need a brand beyond the word Santa Cruz. It evokes something for people, not just in this community, but all over the state and country. One other, I've wanted to tell this story publicly for a while because it's just one of the most fun moments I had this year. Right here at the Museum of Art and History, about 5 or 6 months ago, there was this show that was sort of the fire show that was outside. It was a crazy scene. I was down there with a lot of friends watching, and there were thousands of people here. I mean, there was just a mob scene. And I was standing up on a wall watching it all, just the craziness of it, and having such a good, having a great time. And an old friend of mine saw me there, and she said, and she saw me watching it all, and then she came down, and we got together a few minutes later, and she said, I saw you standing up there, and I thought, boy, there's the mayor of Santa Cruz looking at all this. Being the mayor of Santa Cruz, it must be like being the mayor of Oz. and that sums up my experience of Santa Cruz. It is a magical place, and I don't mean that in some, silly way. I mean, there is some magic in this community, and we are really lucky to be here.
Another day in paradise.
Pam.
Yeah, I've been listening to the conversations, and I was very compelled by your argument. It was good, because it is difficult to pick one thing. But if I had to pick one thing, I would say Santa Cruz is known for sports, year-round sports. And recently I helped advocate for the multi-use trail up at Poganip. And one of the reasons I did that was because it was to bring mountain bikers here year-round. And the cool thing about mountain bikers is they spend their day exercising, they eat a big meal, they crash at a hotel, and then they go ride their bike again and eat another big meal. And so that's a great way to bring in family-friendly.
You forgot feed the hospitals, too.
Yeah, that's true. That's true. Yeah, so they bring in a lot of revenue in a very peaceful way and take advantage of our natural beauty. And so that's the thing. I think when I run across people, they are connected to an activity that they did here. They went hiking, they went biking, they went surfing. And so it's a connection to sports. And I'd like us to be a leader in sports manufacturing, surfboards, bicycles. That's where I think we should go.
Excellent. Thank you. That concludes almost all the questions. I have both a comment and one more question. The comment is on the branding theme. If you haven't read Wallace Stegner's Angle of Repose, there's a terrific section in it on Santa Cruz. And it's a period, and it's a picture of what the city was like at that time. And it actually is very close in time to the photographs that you see on the wall. So if you want to get a sense of how brands and visions and views of this city have changed over time, it's a nice touchstone. You've been here almost 2 hours, right? City council meetings tend to run about at least twice this long. Anybody up here tired? Because if you are...
Because of the truth of your statement, I am a little tired because I was at the council meeting for 5.5 hours last night and about 4 hours the day before.
I'm only 28, so I can stay and field more questions if you guys want all
As my professors in graduate school said, the key here is not how smart you are, it's whether you can stay awake. So if you're up for it, we appreciate all the effort that you're making, both in running for office and in wanting to serve the city. Thank you for being here and answering our questions, and we wish you all good luck.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.